9 a.m. The Gulf of Oman. The Iranian flagship IRIS Jamaran, a $100 million symbol of naval pride, is violently ripped apart by 4 of its very own Noor anti-ship missiles. The resulting fireball vaporizes the command deck in a humiliating instant of friendly fire, while the American carrier strike group sails entirely untouched just over the horizon. If you think this was a tragic mechanical glitch, then you have fundamentally misunderstood the terrifying reality of modern electronic warfare. This was not an accident. This was a digital execution. Most ordinary viewers just see a catastrophic explosion and assume a panicking sailor simply pushed the wrong button. But those of you with a sharp tactical mind are probably asking how a heavily armed frigate suddenly decides to commit suicide in the middle of a coordinated ambush. Stay focused, because the 60 minutes leading up to this spectacular embarrassment is a masterclass in how the US military turns an Iranian trap into a devastating slaughter. 8 a.m. High above the rugged coastline, a US Navy EP-3E Ares II aircraft cruises at 25,000 feet, its sensors drinking in the morning air. Suddenly, warning klaxons aboard the USS Gerald R. Board strike groups scream to life as hundreds of anti-ship fire control radars simultaneously paint the multi-billion-dollar fleet. On paper, the Iranian Coastal Defense Forces only possess 3 operational batteries in this sector, yet American radar screens are choking on a massive ghost army of incoming threats. Deep inside the Ogab 44 underground bunker complex, Iranian commanders are aggressively high-fiving, convinced they have trapped the crown jewel of the US Navy in a saturated kill box using advanced, Russian-supplied C-802 radar simulators. They are celebrating a brilliant tactical deception, firmly believing their cheap electronic tricks have forced a 100,000-ton American supercarrier into a fatal corner. Most amateur observers would assume the fleet is in genuine panic, but those who understand modern naval warfare know better. 0830 hours. Relying on sheer hardware superiority, US commanders launch a flight of F-35C Lightning II stealth fighters to surgically eradicate these mountain-based threats. However, at 0842 hours, the fundamental laws of combat physics violently shift. The Iranians completely shut down their active radars, pivoting to their classified trump card, the Avtabaza-M passive tracking complex. This insidious system does not emit a single traceable radio wave, choosing instead to silently listen to the microscopic electromagnetic noise bleeding off the American avionics. The billion-dollar stealth ghosts of the US Navy suddenly bloom as glaring red targets on Iranian monitors. The bunker commanders are absolutely ecstatic, convinced they have successfully bypassed the most expensive radar-evading technology ever built. If you are watching this and thinking the mighty F-35 just walked into an inescapable ambush, I will tell you an unbelievable military secret. They are completely oblivious to the fact that their perceived triumph is precisely the trigger for their own spectacular eradication. 0845 hours. The skies above the Zagros Mountains erupt into an invisible hurricane of electronic violence as the US Navy responds with overwhelming brute force muscle. The EA-18G Growlers, flying in tight formation, push their ALQ-99 jamming pods to maximum output, violently blasting a solid wall of white noise across the entire radio frequency spectrum. It is an electromagnetic sledgehammer designed to crush the Iranian air defense network, and by 0850 hours, every single enemy radar screen in the sector is completely snowed out, effectively blinding their conventional defenses. But wait, there is a lethal error in this classic electronic warfare approach, a terrifying catch that most standard tacticians would completely miss in the heat of battle. The Iranian Republican Guard had fully anticipated this exact blinding tactic and seamlessly transitioned their targeting network to a buried, fiber optic chain of electro-optical and infrared sensors hidden among the rocky peaks. They are no longer looking for radio waves. They are hunting for the physical heat of the American jet engines. Without emitting a single warning beep on the Growler's threat receivers, the pride of Iran's air defense, the Bavar 373 system, violently expels a Syad 4B hypersonic interceptor into the morning sky in absolute terrifying silence. If you were the commander of that American flight element, staring at instruments that tell you the sky is clear, while a Mach 5 telephone pole of high explosives is silently screaming toward your cockpit, what would your next move be? You are suddenly shoved into a pitch-black knife fight against an adversary wearing night vision goggles, and the economic math of this engagement is starting to look exceptionally grim for the United States. The Navy is burning through tens of thousands of dollars in aviation fuel and degrading multi-million-dollar electronic warfare pods just to unknowingly play the role of high-altitude target practice for a relatively cheap, optically guided missile. This is the exact moment where the Iranian commanders down in the OGAB-44 bunker begin to celebrate, patting themselves on the back for outsmarting the most expensive aviation program in human history. They are watching the thermal feeds, absolutely giddy with the anticipation of watching an $80 million American stealth fighter get shredded into burning aluminum confetti by a silent killer. But here is the genius detail that makes this entire sequence a masterpiece of strategic deception. The Iranians think they are the hunters, but they are completely oblivious to the digital predator that has just slipped into their network. 8:55 a.m. Deep beneath the granite shields of the $13 billion OGAB-44 subterranean fortress, the atmosphere is intoxicatingly arrogant. Iranian officers are practically foaming at the mouth with premature victory, aggressively high-fiving and passing around glasses of sweet tea as they watch the thermal feed of their silent Sayyad-4B missile accelerating toward the heavens. They are heavily intoxicated by their own state-sponsored propaganda, genuinely believing their indigenous hardware is about to publicly execute an $80 million American technological marvel on the world stage. To them, the math is beautiful, violently trading a cheap interceptor for the ultimate symbol of US aerial supremacy. The bunker echoes with boisterous laughter and mocking insults directed at the supposedly blind American pilots, who are blissfully unaware of the supersonic death hurtling toward their tailpipes. They are so busy planning their parade routes and counting their upcoming promotions that they completely ignore a microsecond flicker on their command and control data links. Most ordinary people would look at this control room and see a hardened military machine operating at peak efficiency. But if you belong to the elite group that truly understands the terrifying nature of cognitive electronic warfare, you know exactly what that tiny screen flicker actually means. Stay with me, because the absolute humiliation these overconfident commanders are about to experience will redefine the word embarrassment for the next century. They think they just fired the golden bullet, completely oblivious to the fact that they just handed the United States the digital keys to their entire kingdom. 9 a.m. High above the Persian Gulf, the US Navy unleashes its true digital monster, the EC-37B Compass Call. While the Iranians stare at the blinding white noise of the Growlers, this unarmed modified Gulfstream jet quietly slips into the battle space like a digital ghost. Instead of screaming with brute force radio waves, it simply reaches out and performs open brain surgery on the Iranian defense network. If you ask why this airplane carries no missiles, I will tell you an unbelievable military secret. In the brutal economics of modern combat, a weapon making your enemy shoot themselves is infinitely more lethal than heavy bombers. The EC-37B locks onto the microscopic side-channel emissions bleeding from the Russian satellite data links connected to the OGAB-44 bunker. It is not trying to jam the signal, it is absorbing the algorithmic heartbeat of the Iranian command structure. But here is the twist that makes this mission an absolute masterclass in strategic humiliation. Most casual observers think electronic warfare is just about blocking radars, but the elite technicians inside that compass call are currently injecting a sophisticated logic bomb directly into the Iranian identify friend or foe system. In a flash, the EC-37B maliciously rewrites the reality of the battle space, flipping the digital tags on the Iranian screens. Down in the bunker, the same arrogant commanders who were just high-fiving are suddenly staring at a massive American naval threat materializing in their territorial waters. They do not realize that the terrifying American behemoth flashing violently on their monitors is actually their very own $100 million flagship, the IRIS Jamaran. The bunker descends into sheer panic, with sweating officers screaming orders over encrypted radios to eliminate the threat. Stay tuned, because the physics of destruction in the next 30 seconds is about to shatter Iranian naval pride forever. Without hesitation, the bunker commander slams his fist onto the firing console, ordering the launch of 4 Noor anti-ship missiles. The heavy blast doors of the hidden silos slide open, and the solid rocket motors ignite with a deafening roar, spewing blinding flames across the rocky terrain as the missiles claw their way into the sky. The Iranian commanders are cheering again, convinced they have just launched a devastating sucker punch straight into the jaw of the US Navy. But folks, here is the lethal error they just committed. Those 4 highly advanced missiles are aggressively banking hard to the left, hungrily locking their terminal seekers onto the spoofed coordinates fed directly to them by the EC-37B. 9:04 a.m. The 4 Noor missiles violently scream across the Gulf of Oman, locking onto what they falsely believe is an American destroyer. Down in the combat center of the IRIS Jamaran, the Iranian crew is plunged into sheer terror as alarms screech, realizing their own weapons are descending upon them. The thermal truth is about to get very, very loud. The heavy warheads slam into the Jamaran superstructure, detonating with earth-shattering force that vaporizes the bridge and ignites the magazine in a catastrophic chain reaction. The $100 million flagship is gutted, rolling into the waves in a humiliating display of friendly fire. 0908 hours. The shock of this self-inflicted slaughter triggers a mandatory reboot protocol across the OGAB-44 network, but the American EC-37B forces their computers into a relentless hold-down loop, creating a fatal window of paralysis. Stay focused, because this is where the U.S. Air Force turns the mountain into a tomb. Slipping silently through the airspace, the B-21 Raider opens its payload bay doors and releases a string of GBU-72B advanced 5K penetrators. These 5,000-pound kinetic sledgehammers plunge into the granite, detonating deep underground, unleashing a shockwave that violently collapses the $13 billion facility, burying the arrogant commanders alive. 0912 hours. Desperate to salvage any honor, the Iranian Guard unleashes a blind swarm of suicide speedboats directly at the USS Gerald R. But here is the catch that the planners missed. Instead of wasting expensive interceptors on cheap fiberglass, the Aegis Baseline 10 calmly activates the HELIOS weapon. A silent beam of high-energy laser light instantly melts through the outboard engines of the incoming swarm, violently detonating them one by one at a cost of roughly $3 per shot. The entire flotilla is effortlessly erased from existence, leaving nothing but burning fiberglass bobbing in the water. 9:15 a.m. The smoke clears over the Strait of Hormuz, revealing an impossible victory that will be studied for decades. The USS Gerald R. Ford Strike Group sails calmly, its hull completely unblemished, while the ocean is littered with the burning wreckage of Iran's most expensive assets. The F-35C fighters gently touch down on the flight deck with their internal weapons bays completely full. If you are keeping track of the return on investment here, the United States just crippled an elite command structure and vaporized a $13 billion mountain fortress without losing a single piece of hardware. The cost to the U.S. taxpayer was a few hours of aviation fuel, some electrons fired by the HELIOS laser, and the sheer processing power of the EC-37B. Meanwhile, the Iranian military just watched their flagship sink itself, while Russian escort fighters quietly turn around and flee back to Syria, fleeing the slaughter. But wait, there is one more layer to this triple threat failure. This was never just about surviving an ambush. It was a digital harvesting operation. By forcing the Iranian air defense network to reboot under panic, the U.S. Navy just mapped every single hidden missile silo and fiber optic relay across the entire coastline. The Pentagon now holds the decrypted communication protocols of the entire Republican Guard, effectively turning their command grid into a transparent glass house. The runway is completely clear for a devastating wave of Tomahawk cruise missiles to finish the job whenever Washington gives the green light. The asymmetrical warfare equation has been permanently solved. When you can convince your enemy's weapons to fire on their own allies, that is the ultimate strategic deterrence. Only true tactical minds can answer this question. If you were the Iranian commander tomorrow morning, Do you try to save your non-existent honor, or do you start begging for a ceasefire? Let me know the move of a grandmaster in the comments below.